Cool. So just as a heads up, so far we've got a lot of terrific people, including several folks who have received certainly phase 1s and in some cases phase 2 awards. We've got, it looks like at least 3 people who probably have neither applied nor received awards yet. So we've got a real, as I thought, a real mix of people. All right, so I'm going to get started. I want to welcome all of you. I'm Molly Schmidt. I'm the moderator for this session that includes 2 program directors from the National Cancer Institute's SBIR Development Center. We'll, I'm sure, learn more about what that is at NCI. There should be, in the end, maybe about 20 participants in this discussion. All of you can see this is a normal Zoom session, so please keep yourselves muted until you'd like to actively ask a question or interact. While there will be a presentation from Nancy and Jen, and so please ask questions in chat and we'll get to those at the end of the presentation. This Zoom session is brought to you by UC Irvine's Beale Applied Innovation Center, which is transforming Orange County into a globally recognized startup ecosystem. And that's our goal, and I think we're well on our way to doing that. Beale Applied Innovation runs a Wayfinder incubator as well as an I-Core customer discovery program. And I encourage all of you to explore those programs that are really valuable to you as a startup company. You'll see here a logo, the W.SparkSBIR. In addition to all the other things that Beale Applied Innovation is doing, we ourselves are grant awardees, and I realize I misspelled accelerator, but we won the in 2019 and 2021 the Growth Accelerator Fund Award, and that in part helps to support SBIR counseling and consulting services that hopefully can help you with your SBIR proposals. And with that, let me say today's outline of the talk, we've got introductions initially from Jen and Nancy from National Cancer Institute. They'll then provide a presentation, and there will be plenty of time for Q&A from all of the participants. So I encourage you to type your questions into chat, anything that you don't understand or that pertains to you, feel free to ask those sorts of questions. And with that, Jen, I'll ask you to introduce yourself, and then Nancy, and then we'll get going with the presentation.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Molly, for organizing this event, and thank you all for joining us. My name is Xin Lo, my full name, and everyone calls me Jan. I have been a programmer director with the SBIR Development Center of National Cancer Institute, NCI, for the past 13 years. Our center manages the small business funds of SBIR of NCI to support the development of novel approaches to address unmet needs in cancer detection, diagnosis, treatment, and prevention. My portfolio mainly focuses on cancer diagnosis and the cancer therapy. By training, I am a molecular cellular pharmacologist. Before joining NCI, I worked about 10 years in industry with startups and later big pharma. So when I was actually at Johnson & Johnson Pharmaceutical, I heard from one of my coworkers that NCI is recruiting SBIR program directors from industry. I was very excited because my heart was always with startups. And this job would allow me to work with many of them simultaneously. So I applied and I got the job and I joined NCI, and it's been 13 years of great life. Nancy?
Thanks. Thanks, Molly, and thanks everyone for coming today. I'm Nancy Kamei, and I am a program director as well. I actually sit next door to Jen in the office now, so we're next door neighbors. And I've been a program director for a little over 2 years. I was in the office for about 6 or 7 weeks in my new spot at the NCI, and then we went out on COVID. So that's how long I've been a program director and learned the job, at home, basically. Prior to joining the NCI, I have my PharmD from UCSF and then an MBA from Stanford. In between UCSF and Stanford, I worked in the pharmaceutical industry at Merck, first in a rotating fellowship and then in sales and marketing. But after business school, I got recruited to the biotech industry, and so was on the startup teams for 4 biotech companies, starting from scratch, where I was kind of the business person paired up with a technical founder. So I did that 4 times, really successful 6-year run. The most famous company out of that batch was Onyx Pharmaceuticals, which ultimately got bought by Amgen, great company. And then after that, I switched to the investor seat. And so all in, I have over 20 years as an investor, both public equities and venture capital, and really all about biotech. But I have covered a variety of healthcare sectors, so not just therapeutics. I've done diagnostics, healthcare IT, devices, and even the HMO industry, healthcare services. I retired in 2012 when my son graduated from college because my parental duties were over. And you're seeing me kind of in the 2nd or 3rd iteration of me finding meaning and giving back to the world. And that was what motivated me to join the government in 2017. I first started at NSF as a program director. I worked on the SBIR program, the I-Corps program, and also started up the Convergence Accelerator for them before coming over to the NIH at the very end of 2019. And the other thing, I guess, I taught I-Corps. I saw an I-Corps participant from one of the cohorts I taught on the call today. So I taught I-Corps for probably 5 years for both the NSF and the NIH. And I think that's that. So let me see if I can share the slides here. Jen, is that okay? If you tell me when you want. Okay.
Great. And the floor is yours. Great.
Great.
Okay. So Nancy, could you go to the next slide? Yeah, we introduced each other already. And next, please. Okay, yeah, okay, great. So I was just first to start with giving you an overview of the SBIR STTR program. As you may know, that both Small Business Innovation Research, SBIR, and Small Business Technology Transfer, STTR programs are congressionally mandated programs. Federal agencies with extramural R&D budget reaching a certain level are required to set aside money for SBIR and STTR funds. These requirements, for example, translate into $1.18 billion for NIH in fiscal year 2020. That you can see that provides the largest seed fund for innovative technology development in the healthcare area. And among that, about 179 were managed by NCI, divided between 157 for SBIR and 22 million for STTR. So NCI has the largest pool of SBIR STTR fund among 27 institutes within NIH. Last year, this budget increased about $3 million, and then this year we should have a relatively even bigger budget increase. And then see next slide, please. Both SBIR and STTR are three-phase programs, and you can enter these programs from different phases. And phase 1 is for feasibility study with budget up to $400K and a duration between 6 to 12 months. After the completion of phase 1, you can apply for a phase 2. Phase 2 is the stage for full R&D with a budget up to $2 million to cover a period of 2 years. You can also apply through fast track, which is the combination of both phase 1 and phase 2. The advantage of fast track is that if successful, you can avoid the application and the peer review process between regular phase 1 and the phase 2. So you can save some time. And also the disadvantage, of course, then if for granted, if you lose, and you're going to lose both of them. So if you already have significant feasibility study in hand, that is equivalent to phase 1, by the end of phase 1, you can also apply through the mechanism called directed to phase 2. After successfully complete phase 2, or about to complete phase 2, if further funding is also needed for technology development, technology validation or clinical translation, you can continue to apply for phase 2B bridge award. So this bridge award provides up to $2 million per year for up to 3 years, and with a total budget not exceed $4 million. The bridge award actually is the only one that requires a predicate phase 2 to apply. So this is the one you cannot come in directly. However, the predicate phase 2 can be with any federal agency. As long as your project is cancer related, you can take that and come to NCI to apply for bridge. So by the end of these supports, you're expected to transit into phase 3, which is the commercialization stage, where no SBIR fund is involved. You are supported either by sufficient private fund or have successfully commercialized your products. So what I wanted to emphasize here is that choosing the best entry phase for your project will increase the chance of your success. Next slide, please. So who are eligible for these awards? All the US small businesses are eligible for SBIR and STTR, as long as they meet these 3 criteria. 1, are organized for profit. 2, hire less than 500 employees. And 3, greater than 50% owned by US individuals and independently operated, or greater than 50% owned by another US small business, or greater than 50% owned by VCs, hedge funds, private equity firms, or any of the combinations. The last criteria only works for SBIR, but not for STTR. So if you are interested in applying, be sure to give yourself at least 6 to 8 weeks to complete all the required registrations for the program. Next slide, please, Nancy. To help you make the right decision between SBIR and STTR, I think this probably is important for this audience. So this slide summarizes the three major differences between SBIR and STTR. The first is the relationship between the small business and the research institution. One, SBIR permit the partnership, but STTR requires such a partnership. And the second is the division of labor and reflected by the budget, which actually is the key decision point to decide whether to use SBIR or STTR. And because SBIR only allow 33% of outsourcing for the phase 1 and 50% for phase 2. However, STTR allows 6% for outsourcing. So if the majority of work needed to be done in a research institution, and then you have no other choice, you have to choose STTR instead of SBIR. The third big difference is the PI employment. So for the PI employment and the contracting PI for SBIR has to stay with the small business greater than 50%. That the definition of stay with the small business is greater than 50% hired by the small business during the project period. And for STTR, the PI can be, the contracting PI can be either with the small business or with the research institute. So in any case, in either for SBIR or STTR, the applicant is always the small business. Nancy, next slide, please. So this slide is give you an example of a typical NCI SBIR STTR portfolio in a given year. Due to the limitation of time, I'm not going to go through them one by one, and you can get the slide from Molly later, so you can look by yourself. Next, please. Yeah, before I show you the availability of the current funding, and I would like to explain a little bit of the mechanisms. Most of the SBIR are funded through two mechanisms. One is grant, and the other one is contract. The majority of our funding goes through grants, in particular Omnibus, which is for the investigator-initiated technology and product development. This grant solicitation has 3 receipt dates. They are January 5th, April 5th, and September 5th. Small amount grant also goes through target grant solicitations. These targeted solicitations come and go, and usually with specific receipt dates. The review of grants is usually organized by the NIH Center for Scientific Review. Contracts, on the other side, are very rigid. At NCI, SBIR contracts are usually used to either stimulate the development of specific technology area or standardize a product development process. Therefore, almost all of them, the scope is defined by NCI, and each topic has its own review panel. So therefore, the advantage of contract is that you do not need to compete with the hot topic within the same review panel. Therefore, often we see the success rate is higher than that of grants. So if your project fits the scope of a contract, you should consider contract instead of grant. But if it doesn't fit, you should go with the grant because contract is very rigid. Next slide, please. So this table is a summary of some of the current opportunities Again, I'm not going to go through them one by one, and you can read the slide later. And also they're also listed on our website, that is sbir.cancer.gov. But one thing I wanted to, okay, that's okay. I just wanted to emphasize with the funding situation is that, choose the right solicitation will really increase your success. So you needed to read the solicitation before you apply. Okay. Next, yeah. So now I'm going to tell you two of our most unique new funding opportunities. The first one is SBIR Concept Award to support disruptive innovation. Through the years, we realized that the bar for phase one is getting higher and higher because of a competition. Therefore, we designed this concept award to attract early stage disruptive innovation. This opportunity use a contract as a mechanism. The due date this year is August 22nd. If you want feedback from us, you can submit a white paper before May 2nd. So if you have an out-of-box idea, but no preliminary data, this is the best facilitation for you to apply. Awardees successfully complete this concept award can continue in the SBI STTR program by applying for either phase one or some more advanced, you can actually go to direct to phase two or fast track, a combination of phase one and phase two. Next, please. Next slide, please, Nancy. Yeah. So the second one I like to touch on is the Small Business Transition Grant, which is probably the most relevant opportunity to this audience. The idea here is to provide a mechanism to support early stage researchers that want to transition out of academic track into industrial track. This time the mechanism is fast track. The application uses STTR mechanism for phase one, and the principal investigator should be an early stage researcher. For example, an ideal candidate can be a postdoc who developed the technology in the academic research lab and is now ready to move to a small business. But the other early stage of faculties are also eligible as long as they are within 8 years of their terminal degree. The special requirements are the PI needs 2 mentors, one a technical mentor and the other business mentor. During the phase one and the phase two transition stage, while the program is evaluating the technical milestones, the PI of the project should also complete the employment switch from academic institution to the small business. Phase two uses SBIR mechanism. Therefore, a formal collaborative agreement between the small business and the research institution is not needed anymore, but the mentoring should continue. Next slide, please. The due date for this funding opportunity is also August 22nd this year. We particularly encourage women and scientists from underrepresented group to apply. So if any of you are looking for an opportunity to switch from academic to industry and become an entrepreneur, this funding opportunity is designed for you. So I'm going to stop here, and Nancy is going to use the next few minutes to give you some, tell you something, some of our assistance provided to the awardees. Nancy, please.
Thank you. And yes, we planned this today to leave lots of room for Q&A. So that's why Jen went super fast through all those slides. So my first message is, as entrepreneurs, we all have to be resilient. And if you're going to apply to this program, resilience is a key. So if you just look at this, the orange bar, or excuse me, the blue bars are acceptance upon an original application, and the orange bars are acceptance upon a resubmission. And you can see in every case, the orange bar is much higher than the blue bar. And when you look at the different pieces of the program, SBIR phase 1, STTR phase 1, across the board, a picture like this is always true. And the reason is because you put in your original application and you will get feedback from reviewers. At a very minimum, you'll get feedback from 3 reviewers. And then when you submit the resubmission, you have a chance to give a 1-page response to the issues that were raised by the reviewers. And so it gives you a chance to be in conversation with those reviewers and maybe straighten out some of the things that they didn't hear so clearly from your application. So we have found there are certain groups who apply and who get a reasonably good score and then don't reapply. A really big message from us is that you have to just keep trying. There's a little bit of randomness in the process. And so, the best thing to do is to just keep applying, but be strategic about how you apply to this program. And maybe we can get into that in the Q&A. And so for new applicants, the first tip is to begin with the end in mind, which means be sure that you understand how your application is being scored. For phase 1, there are 5 score criteria, starting on the left: environment, investigator, significance, approach, and innovation. You basically get scored on each of those topics, and then that rolls in together to be your final score. In the phase 2, there's the additional commercialization plan that's required. So that's the 6th criteria in the phase 2 application process. It's really important. I think there are sample applications that have been successful that are on our website, and they are on other websites around the NIH. You want to kind of try to emulate the way an application is put together. So it makes it really easy for the reviewers to find those 5 or 6 sections in your application so that they can really be clear, well, what is the innovation here? And what is the significance? You just really address it very directly, and it helps the reviewers get through your application. The second tip is to be sure and get guidance and feedback through this process. We have here in the green bar or boxes all these different programs that are available throughout the time that you are with the SBIR, STTR program. And Jen and I are actually working on something new that's going to even work for people who haven't been an active grantee for a couple of years. And so I'll start at the left, which is the application assistance program. And then I'll just touch on some of the other programs. So this is a free application preparation assistance program. And so if you go Google AAP NCI, it'll take you to a landing page. There's going to be a session April 25th for the next cohort. And the way it works is if you apply April 25th and get accepted to this program, you will work with a grant writing consultant for the next 10 to 12 weeks. And what it does is it tees you up to have your entire application ready for the September deadline. So this program is really for applicants who have tried maybe or never tried, but haven't gotten yet SBIR, STTR money. And it's kind of a way to try and level the playing field, because in the program, we do have some companies that have applied and won many SBIR and STTR applications because they've learned how to write the application in a way that it is easy for reviewers to read. And so we're trying to make some of that assistance available for everybody so that you can all join the program. Okay, it's a great program. So if you're thinking about the September deadline, please apply April 25th. The second most important thing I'm going to say today is about sending in your specific aims well in advance of a submission deadline. So the next submission deadline is in September. If you can start sending in your specific aims, 6 or 8 weeks in advance, send it into a program director in our office and ask for a meeting, and it'll give you a chance to get some feedback to help understand whether the specific aims that you're asking to be funded, if you've picked the right vehicle, that is phase 1, phase 2, fast track or other, and if they're shaped in a way that looks like other successful applications in the past. This is a step that a lot of applicants skip over, and then they're sorry that they didn't talk to a program director. And we're here, there are 12 of us in the office, and we're here to help you. So please reach out in advance. Of course, if you reach out the day before a deadline, you're probably not gonna get a lot of feedback. And the other thing I would say is maybe confusing for new applicants is that this program is for project finance. And how you define the project that you're asking the NCI to fund is through this list of specific aims. So with these specific aims, you are telling the NCI, this is the project that I want to finance. And you're really trying to show how you have milestones and that you're moving towards commercialization, because that is what this program is about. This is about small businesses. And it's very different than what a lot of PIs are used to writing for regular RO1 grants. In the RO1 program, it's really about advancing knowledge. But in the SBIR, STTR program, this is really about advancing towards commercialization. And again, I want to emphasize that we are financing a project. We are not looking to finance companies. Now, when we finance your project, we're also providing finance to the company. But it's not just the same as approaching an investor with your entire platform and all the things that you can do with your technology. The specific aims are really there for you to really sculpt that project that you are asking the NCI to fund. Please discuss your specific aims with the program director. And there's all kinds of program directors, all focused on cancer, but all focused on a particular niche in cancer. So there must be somebody who you can get into a conversation with about the topic of your application. Okay. We said we were going to finish 2 minutes ago. And so I'm going to go really fast, and then we're going to go to Q&A. The TREX workshop is an in-person meeting, which happens with all our grantees every 2 years. And we hope to have our next one in 2023. The PLAN webinar series is a peer learning and network webinar, which happens 2 to 4 times a year, where we let grantees help us pick a topic, and then we put together grantees or others to talk about a particular issue. The last PLAN webinar I attended was about 501k. Did I say that right? Anyway, and then Investor Initiatives is a program where you can apply to this program, and then we arrange for you to meet with a variety of investors or potential partners. And it's been a very successful program at matching up our companies with partners. ICOR at NIH, I know we have at least one person who's been through this program. This is an entrepreneurial immersion course for phase 1 SBIR, STTR grantees. And you go out and talk to 100 customers or potential partners. It's an experiential learning exercise over about 8 weeks. And I will say for the phase 1 grantees, it really is a chance to work on what will be really important in your phase 2 application, which is the commercialization plan. And I can tell you by reading a lot of phase 2 applications, you can almost tell just in the beginning, reading the first paragraph of a commercialization plan, if the company has gone through ICOR or not. You just really, really learn a lot about how your product might fit into patient workflow through this program. We have a CEO executive roundtable with several cohorts running right now. This is where a group of our PIs and CEOs meet on a monthly basis. And last is the CARE program, which is about connecting awardees with regulatory experts. So please, we have a bunch of regular events. Please sign up for our newsletter. And we have office hours every month, or you can always reach out to ask for a one-on-one meeting with a program director. We've gotten feedback that there's just a lot of misunderstandings about the program, or people feel like we're not approachable as program directors. And we're here today because we want you to know that we're here. So please reach out to us. You know, the more time you give, like to have a response in a conversation, the better. But we are responding to potential applicants all the time. And please take, you know, advantage of that resource, because it hopefully will help you have a better chance in the review process. Okay. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing.
All right, Nancy, thank you so much, and thank you. We have a couple of questions. The first one, I will send slides to all of you. So that's the answer to one question. And I'm just going to go down. This is a Zoom call. I'm going to assume everybody knows how to unmute themselves and ask a question. So Kristen, you had a comment. I think you're still there. I can't find you right now. But do you want to, it's about AAP, I think, right?
Well, I was just saying, oh my gosh, this is a wonderful opportunity. I was so excited. So the assistance program is something that I 100% absolutely drastically need in my life. How I'm obviously, I just learned about it, so I haven't even gone to the website yet, but what would you suggest or recommend we should keep in mind in the application process to make sure that we get in?
So it's a very simple application, actually. You'll see it's less than a page of text. You just fill in some boxes, just explaining what your technology is. And you know, maybe what you know about how it would be used in clinical situation. I will say that that program was originally designed with women and underrepresented innovators in mind, but it takes all comers. You do have an advantage if you've never received SBIR or STTR money before. That's really who it's for, but they try and fill the cohort every cycle anyway. So sometimes
Perfect.
there are repeat customers. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And thank you for your time today. This has been amazing.
Thank you.
Great. And Robert, you had another AAP question?
Yeah, hey everybody, thank you for this, and thank you, Molly, for giving me a heads up about this. Yeah, my question is the AAP program, I forget what it stands for, is that specific and germane to NCI, or is that also applied to other institutes within the NIH?
It applies to other institutes. I think there are 14 institutes total that participate now, but if you just Google AAP and NIH, it'll take you right there. And I just looked it up yesterday. April 25th is the informational webinar, and also the same day that the application process opens.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
I see some hands up, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Okay, let's go for our hands.
Well, I see this question about study sections. Should we answer
Yeah.
that?
Let's do that, Chris.
Okay,
Oh, I have
so-
lots of questions, but yeah, you can
Oh.
answer the study section question first. That'd be great.
Okay, so you can just go to SBIR NIH study sections. You just Google that, and it shows you all the SBIR study sections. And in the application process, there's a point where you can request, and people do that, and sometimes they get it, and sometimes they don't. Jen?
Yeah, nothing to add.
So do you have any advice though on how to pick the right one? Because so we've got a medical device that's a therapeutic, and it seems to fit in a number of different sections. We've had maybe not great luck going to one that's more focused on imaging, and they maybe don't focus as much on the therapy aspect. And so we, after talking with the program director, we were advised to go to a different one.
Well,
Just trying to get to that understanding maybe before having applied 2 times first.
yeah, well, keep going.
We just applied again in April.
For April, that's great. So the best thing I would say is you can click through and you can see the people that are on the study section for this fiscal year. So if you look at the roster, you can look at all the rosters and you can kind of get an idea of who's on those panels. And so whether or not you think that they might understand your innovation.
So by looking at their background,
Yeah,
is it like that's one way of doing it. The other way is like if you were the ones that like handpicked the study sections, we can ask you directly. Is that how, like that's what I'm trying to.
Oh, I see. Jen, do you want to explain that process?
Yeah, so the study section is not picked by us, it's run by the Center of Scientific Review. And we do recommend if you wanted to be a reviewer, and you can sign on the web. I think they have it now, and you can also go through us then, because the SRO sometimes come to us for recommendations. So I think that for selecting the right one, then I think the best way is like Nancy says, just look at the individual ones, even though for SBI, STTR, the reviewers are ad hoc, not like the academic one there. Once they committed for a few years. They're ad hoc. However, the SRO always wanted to replace with the one have similar background because they wanted to have a balance. So with looking at the existing one, you should be able to get a good sense.
Great, thank you.
Just echoing or building on what Jen said, they're always looking for reviewers. And it's one of the best ways to kind of understand the lay of the land, because that's really the only way that you'll get to watch that process is if you give your time.
Is there any restrictions on becoming because we were trying to apply for, we got an NSF phase 1, and we are also trying to apply to become reviewers for NSF, and they say you need to finish the phase 1 first. Is there any restriction on that for NIH?
What I understand, Jen, you might know differently, but I know current grantees that are on those panels, and then sometimes they have to recuse themselves. Jen, do you know anything differently?
So in NIH, I don't know, being a current awardee is a restriction. I think the restriction is conflicts. So for example, if there are awards be reviewed for UC Irvine, and if you're employee, you have to, leave the review. So I think that's the only thing. And for grant, you can participate to the rest, only leave for the specific ones.
But you are raising an important difference between the NSF program and the NIH program, okay? At the NSF program, the program directors also run those review panels. At the NIH, we're so big, there's a completely separate division called the Center for Scientific Review. I've never even met any of those people. That's all they do is they, run the review process and basically then toss the score over the wall to us. And we get the summary statement as well. So it's really so much bigger here at the NIH than the NSF. We are 8 times bigger or something like that. Is that right? Or 5 times bigger, something like that.
Yeah.
So it's just much more departmentalized.
Yeah, so this is also blame on COVID. Before COVID, that we actually meet sometimes together, and so they came over to meet with us.
Oh yeah, and we, as program directors, we can listen and watch the study sections, and I do, but we don't ever say anything. We just watch.
Let's
Yeah,
get a
during the
smart
review,
question.
cannot.
So Chao Yu Shi, I believe, has a question.
Oh, yes, thank you. It's a wonderful seminar with a lot of information. I haven't applied any of the grants, but me and my collaborators are planning to. So one of my major questions is about the timing of patenting and applying for SBIR or STTR. Is there a conflict? Do I need to patent the provisional first and apply, or it doesn't matter at which point?
Jen, do you?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I can answer that. No, you don't need it to get the patent before you apply. You can apply. So there's two different issues when you apply. One is because how much information you want it to release before you get the patent. So this is to your own comfortableness. But just on the reviewer side, you just needed to tell them, but you want to tell them you needed to get the patent to let them know you know to protect your intellectual property.
And particularly in a phase 2 application, in the commercialization plan, IP is a section in there. So you would have to address that if you're applying fast track or phase 2. And I guess the other thing is that the entire review process is confidential. Yet, many applicants choose, for example, not to disclose the full structure of their molecule. That is a very case-by-case and individual decision that a company needs to make about how much do they want to show or if they want to show.
So whether the applicants have patents already or not would not influence the score of the review. Is that right?
In phase 1, I think it's, go ahead, Jen.
You go ahead, Nancy, finish.
I was going to say it's more of a phase 2 issue because there is a section in the commercialization plan where you have to address IP. Phase 1 is more like a kind of proof of concept phase. And so I would say it slightly tilts more towards the technology and, the innovation kind of equation. Jen, I don't know if you're kicking me under the virtual table. Was that okay?
Oh no, that's exactly what you said. I just want to add in a little bit more that, if timing is good, then if you think you're just about to get the patent, that will be better than if you have it. And for some reviewers that we see that make a difference, that is true. In particular, if your technology, they have the worry about whether you will be able to, how seriously you are. So that's the main concern. So if you can show them, then you patented, that's better. But you don't want to delay your process because of this.
Thank you. It's very helpful.
Let's see, Mohammed has a question, I think.
Thank you so much, Nancy and Jean, for the wonderful talk. I do have a very quick question. So to apply for phase 1 small business transition grant, I noticed there is a NIH R-Corp's requirement. Is it going to be done in advance before applying to the grant, or is going to be done during the grant once it's funded?
It's during the grant period, and there is a cohort that's being run just for those grantees.
Great, thank you so much.
All right, let's see, there are a couple of questions in the chat. John Collins, do you want to ask your question?
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Molly. Hi, Nancy.
Hi.
Yeah, so I have a question about bringing some technology to cancer applications. And do we need for SBIR phase 1, do we need to bring some preliminary results for cancer, or is only for concept paper?
So in phase 1 in both programs, no preliminary data is required. Okay. So
how about the
not required,
concept?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Jen, the concept award?
Yes, concept award that you mentioned. Is it good to present this new technology that was already established for another application to bring it to cancer?
Well, this is not what the concept award is looking for. So the concept award is looking for is really new ideas, out of box ideas. So that's why particularly the concept award does not require any preliminary data. And for the regular phase 1, preliminary data are not required. However, it's because of the competition. And then, there are a lot of people provided preliminary data, and I would think the majority of reviewers prefer the one that have the data, especially if they have show very supportive data. So
Okay.
that's the difference. It does not require.
It's not required. It is really competitive. But every cycle we do see some applications that get really great scores that are just really amazing concepts with no preliminary data. It's not the average application that gets funded, but there are always a few. And then I was just going to say, John, like if you have something that's already running and that you want to apply it to cancer, you kind of do have preliminary data, you just have it in a different disease. And so it may be better to be a fast track or a direct to phase 2, but the way to figure that out is to write the specific aims and send it into somebody to read.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Adam, hand raised.
Hey there. Hey, Molly.
Hi there.
Yeah, so I do have a quick question, and this is something I actually brought up with Molly like a month ago. And since you guys are, program officers, I think you'd be the perfect people to ask. So it has to do with the award budget. And so the total funding support nominally may not exceed $275K for a phase 1. Yeah, exactly. So I was curious if you could please, shed some light on this. Let's add some color to what is.
Wait, were you listening though when Jen went over the caps?
Yeah, I heard 400.
Yeah.
And I've looked up on Reporter, and I was looking at. I just don't know how to understand or think about.
Okay, so, and then the thing I said is you got to write into a program director, right?
Yeah.
So in the NCI, Jen flashed the numbers for NCI, 400,000, 2 million. Those are our numbers, but that only goes for the NCI. If you're going in some other disease state, or if you're going to a different federal agency, the caps are going to be different. And that's why you need to engage as an applicant with a particular program officer. Okay. So if it is cancer, then it's 400,000. And I think it's a tragedy. I just had one of these yesterday, an applicant who got a pretty good score, but only asked for 259,000 because it was somebody else's cap. And the comments that came back were that, it would have been nice if they had done these other experiments. So of course, if they knew that the cap was 400,000 and not 259, they would have put more work in the application. And so that's why, as an applicant, I know it's really confusing because there's 27 institutes at the NIH.
Yes.
And each one of them has a different program. But you kind of have to decide, here's the project I'm going to ask to be funded, and then go find the program and go find a program officer. Okay.
I just wanted to add in a little more on that is that, so as I said, then you really needed to read the solicitation before you write. And these numbers are listed on the solicitation. If you don't have time to read the whole solicitation, one thing to do is that for the cap, you can Google waiver topics. So that will bring out to the table of each different institute within NIH, what is their cap.
True, but I believe when I've looked it up for the budget waivers, they didn't have like an additional hard cap. It's kind of like hand wavy their explanations.
So some institute does not have additional cap. As long as you're on the waiver topic, there's no limitation. However, if you read NCI and on the waiver topic, there are limitations. Phase one is 400K, phase 2 is $2 million.
And are those like hard caps? So
these are the hard caps, really hard caps.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me
Pay attention to that.
Let me ask a question on that.
Okay.
So let's suppose Adam submits a proposal that has 411K as the final number, and he gets terrific technical review. Are you going to turn him down completely because of that?
At some
No.
agencies, at the NIH, they don't, but at some agencies they do. So that's why, as an applicant, you really need to know which program you're applying to, because you don't want to spend all that time putting the application together and then getting kicked out of the system before you even get reviewed.
Okay, so it
Yeah.
sounds like for NIH, I think the game plan is to go big, and then you can always negotiate down if you're awarded.
No, that's not true, Adam.
No. No, it's 400,000 cap for phase 1 and 2 million cap. You're never going to get a penny more than that, ever.
Yeah, so you will never get a penny more than that. If it's 411, that 11 will be cut off.
Yeah, exactly.
If it is 500, then you're running the risk, may not get the award at all, because you needed to change the aims to cut down 100K. So therefore, and this probably won't be awarded. We had that issue before.
Okay. Okay. Brilliant.
Yeah, I think that kind of a tension is that really terrific entrepreneurs and innovators are used to breaking the rules. And then you're running up against the NIH that has certain rules that just really are not meant to be broken. And, that's kind of rough for the government to be running an entrepreneurial program. But anyway.
Let's see, I think Chris has another question or two.
So this is a rumor that I've heard that I'd like you to either dispel or confirm.
Excellent.
So what's the impact, and especially for phase 1, of the company already having external funding like VC funding? I guess the rumor is that they switched the metrics for NIH to really promote companies that had a solid, that were going to be able to commercialize. And the easiest way to see that is that somebody already invested in them. And so that ended up like you're investing in the people who didn't need the help. Anyway, is there a metric associated with already having current funding? Okay.
So in the phase 1 process, you get scores on those 5 criteria, and none of them have to do with funding in phase 1.
Like and I guess maybe the commercialization
So
one.
in phase 2, then you do have to talk about your financing plan. So you do have to address that. And you do have to have a financing plan, but there are many phase 2 grantees that have never raised outside funding. And then there are others that have raised substantial outside funding. So I don't know anything about what you're talking about as a metric or scoring or anything like that.
Okay.
So I don't know, Jen.
The only thing, I don't know if it could be because the phase 2B bridge award, because of the time I cut off that part detail.
Oh yeah.
For phase
Okay.
2B, yeah, we do need a 1-to-1 third-party matching fund. So, but that is in the really late stage, is that $4 million bigger grant.
Right. So that's after you've finished phase 1 and phase
And the
2,
phase 2, yeah.
and you've raised outside funding. Then there's the match program. And then it does really matter. So you can't get phase 2B funding without having closed your financing. But that's a whole different thing. That's not like, 95% of what we do.
Yeah.
All
thank you.
right. Well, with that, we're at the end of our time. Nancy, Jen, thank you so very, very much. This was a fantastic session. And really appreciate all the terrific questions and comments from the participants and all the information. Honestly, I learned a ton.